We all want to collide with opportunity, don't we? We all want our phone to ring. We want the right people to find us. We want things to land in our lap. And so that's really what I try to do with branding, is to help people collide with that opportunity. Things, when you tell your story, when you make it very clear who you are, what you do, how you help, and why it matters, you will attract the right people, the right things to your door. And that right there is branding.
This is the Entrepreneurs United podcast with your hosts, John St. Pierre and Rich Hoffman.
Rich, there's one thing that we as leaders and entrepreneurs don't think enough about. Would you take a guess at what I think that is?
No. I feel like you're setting me up to fail.
No, I think you might have gotten it, but it's about your brand. It's brand. Like, I remember reading a book called Brand You.
Yes.
The brand that you have is so important within your organization, outside of your organization, just holistically in your community. It's time to rise up and take control of your brand. And today we have Donna Serdula. She's the founder and president of Vision Board Media that's here with us today. Donna, thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me, John and Rich. Thank you so much.
Why did you choose to focus on personal brand and helping people rise up and tell them, hey, listen, your brand really matters? Why did that become something you wanted to focus on?
It wasn't something that I came out of college or I started a business with this idea of personal branding. And that was never the case. It was something that sort of collided with me, I think. What I did know was I'd come out of corporate. I was in a very, very high pressured sales role. And when I was successful, one of the things I recognized was I wasn't really even selling my product or my services. I was selling myself. And that when people were buying, they weren't buying just the product. There was an element of me as a part of it. They wanted to work with me. And I remember feeling that when I recognized that was huge for me. But back then it was the LinkedIn profile, and LinkedIn it was such a huge piece in my toolbox. And understanding that when I was looking at people, I was always landing on their LinkedIn profile and it always looked like a resume and it never gave me what I wanted. And I remember having this epiphany of, if they look so bad, how do I look? Like, I never even thought to think of like what I was putting out there. And I was doing the exact same thing as all these other people. And so for me, it was more about LinkedIn and the LinkedIn profile. And that's how I started my business. That's how I grew and ended up with 15 writers and 8,000 clients, and just in LinkedIn, that was so big. But what really ultimately got to me was that people struggle to tell their story. They struggle to show who they are, to tell that story, to see themselves clearly, and they needed help. And the brand is really such an important part. And the profile was more of an excuse to get to the brand. And that was the easier way for people to go. So long, but that's the answer.
Yeah, and you had started with that it collided with you. That's interesting language. What's the collision part about?
Well, we all want to collide with opportunity, don't we? We all want our phone to ring. We want the right people to find us. We want things to land in our lap. And so that's really what I try to do with branding, is to help people collide with that opportunity. Things, when you tell your story, when you make it very clear who you are, what you do, how you help, and why it matters, you will attract the right people, the right things to your door. And that right there is branding.
You said who you are, what you do, and why it matters. Would those be the three kind of starting points if someone wanted to work on brand?
I would go even deeper. It's who are you? What do you do? Why do you do it? How do you do it? Why does it matter? But also, who do you help? And what would those people who need it, what would they be looking for? I think a lot of people forget that piece of it. How would someone go about finding you? Because that's a big part of the story that you want to tell if you want to collide with opportunity.
So if somebody wanted to work with you or your agency, what is the process that you would take them down? What is that client journey that you have?
The client journey is really about opening up and learning who are you and what are you going after? What is it? What's going to make you happy? And being able to quantify it and quantify it in a manner where we're really future casting. Like we're really looking into the future and saying, okay, what is it that you want to achieve? It's not just what is your brand and what you want to say, but what does your target audience need to know about you? What is going to get you closer to that future version, that future vision of yourself?
So Donna, as you say that, I just want to bring it back here. You talked a little bit about the why, right?
Mhm.
And I think a lot of times some of the entrepreneurs that I work with and entrepreneurs that I work with are like,
Mhm.
look, my why is to have an extraordinary life and be successful and happy with my family. And
Mhm.
but I would go back, yeah, but your personal brand's still important. Whereas some other people, their why may be, I want to be an influencer and I want to be out there with thought leadership. And they have this more extroverted view of, I want
Mhm.
everybody to know who I am and what I do. So if you just start with the why is personal brand so important, regardless of which of those two paths you're interested in?
Yeah, I think people, especially now in the age of AI, the age of automation, the age of technology, I think we still want to do business with people. We want to know that there's someone out there who we're touching, who we're helping, or even the opposite, that someone is there to help me and to lead me and to hold my hand and to help me be successful. And and I when you think of it like that, to have that personal brand and to be able to say, look, this is who I am, this is what I stand for, and this is why I mesh with you. This is why you should trust me and like me and believe in me. And all of that comes down to the brand and how you are setting yourself up to be perceived by other people. And when I say that, the part about branding that I love is it's taking control and putting yourself out there in a manner that impresses and builds confidence and creates that trust, and that deep down, it has to be authentic, it has to be real, and it has
Yeah.
to be accurate to who you are, because only then is it truly successful. Because if you put yourself out there in a manner that's not authentic, it's not real, you're overselling your abilities or whatnot, you're not going to get the same buy-in or the same resonance.
Yeah. When you said all that, it connects me to sometimes people think about their LinkedIn profile or how they're appearing on social or whatever it may be as a way for external sales. But there's a lot of people who look really good on social media, and then you have a conversation with them and you're like, oh, okay, they're representing themselves one way and they're acting another. Same
Yeah.
thing is true with leaders and entrepreneurs and companies. They may say one thing but act another way. And so personal brand goes to that authenticity of who are you and what does your brand represent. And the thing that comes to mind, Rich, when I say all that is Michael Alasso, right? And the micro messages, like the micro messages you send say a lot about your personal brand and how you're going to act with people and how you're going to be authentic to who you truly are. So when you think, Donna, about just branding, whether it be how your LinkedIn profile looks or how you actually act in the conference room with your team,
Mhm.
what are some elements beyond authenticity? If authenticity is number one, where, hey, you have to
Mhm.
be authentic, what other skills do you see or find in the most authentic leaders that build the best brands?
The first place my brain went to as you were teeing that up for me, I really, I think it's important, especially for a leader, to have two aspects. One, it needs to be future focused, right? It needs to guide them to where they eventually want to go. It can't be too perfectly nestled in where they are, because that's when we get pigeonholed and that's when we start to feel stuck. So it has to direct them forward, right? So it needs to tell a broader story, a more future type of story. So that's one piece. The other piece, and this is especially true for entrepreneurs and for leaders, I also think it needs to spotlight a bit of their past to show where they got. Because there's nothing that I dislike more and nothing that I feel is more misleading is that CEO who just became a CEO. And there's no backstory. There's no lead up. There's no progression. There's no climb. There's no background. And I do think that when an entrepreneur, when a leader is looking at their brand, they want to develop it into the future. But at the same time, I do think we need to see how they cut their teeth, what they've learned, where they've come from, and what that means.
Got it. So to paraphrase that, and you said this initially, when you go to someone's LinkedIn profile and you see their resume, all they're doing is spotlighting their past. It's a resume.
It's an obituary at that point.
Whereas when you're thinking about your brand, whether it be in personal conversation, whether it be your LinkedIn profile or how your social presents itself, you should be thinking about not only being authentic to who you are, but you should add an element of future focused kind of thinking, which maybe is part of Vision Board, which is the name of your company, Vision Board Media, right? You got to present some of that vision, that excitement, that where you are going or where you can help people go. But also it has to be authentic and backed by, here's where I've been. So that's still relevant, but it has to add more of that authentic future focused component. Did I paraphrase that?
You got it beautifully. And I think for anyone who's listening, if you find yourself, we talked about colliding, right? If you find that you're colliding with these lower level opportunities, maybe you've spent too much time on your past and lower level experiences. And that's what LinkedIn's algorithm is delivering to you, because you spent all this time talking about the past, things that you did in the past. That's where the primary part of the content is in the past. You're gonna find that you're not getting the right level of opportunities. So that's one way. The other issue is that you don't have any content at all, right? So you just have this bare bones and you're not really giving anyone anything. They're qualified, they're there, they're reading, they want to learn something. There should be content. But on the flip side, if all you're doing is selling, again, people don't want to be sold. They love to buy, but they don't want to be sold, at least not on the LinkedIn profile. They're there for a reason. They want to like you. They want to see that you've earned some trust, you've done some stuff. So it really is. You think of the profile, you think, oh, how easy can it be? I'll just copy and paste my resume and that'll be done. But to really have one that converts and builds that brand and gets people feeling good, they're there for a reason. They've landed on your profile. They want to know about you.
Yeah.
This is a ball you do not want to drop.
You had a key word in there that I think Rich's ears were just buzzing as you said it. So trust. Rich, how important do you think trust is relative to a brand, a personal brand, and rising up and building a personal brand?
What a tee up. I don't think there's anything that could be more important. Someone could be skilled and be able to be helpful for someone who's in need, but if they're not trusted, all that goes away. Yeah. And I think to communicate trust initially, where it's not voice to voice, where it's being done in writing on a LinkedIn profile, is incredibly important. I'm not suggesting I'm the best at doing it. As we're having this conversation, I'm sitting there reflecting on what do I have on there, and it's more of a resume under my initial belief that people are going to go on LinkedIn because they want to see what is this person about and how were they formed. What I'm coming to learn from you is they also want to know more about where you're going. Yeah. And I'd say that's a bit of a miss on my personal profile. You had said something about converting. I have a belief that there aren't a lot of conversions that happen on LinkedIn. That's just a belief. That's not data backed. You do this for a living. Can you tell me about what's the conversion rate? How would someone track conversion? How do they draw people to their profile? That's a whole area that I'd say I'm relatively uneducated on and initially a little bit skeptical about.
I think for a person who hasn't optimized their profile and maybe they've updated it once in 10 years or 5 years, there isn't a lot of conversion that takes place. For a person who has put effort in and they're telling a story, they're putting some soul into it. They're using it not so much as a resume, but more as a manifesto, right? In that type of a situation, there is a conversion, but what is the conversion? I'm not necessarily saying a conversion is a sale. It could be a phone call. It could be a click to message to say, hey, I'd like to learn more about your services. It could be that they're looking at the featured section and they're seeing, oh, here's a link to their website. Let me keep digging. Let me see what else is out there. So the conversion is just that additional step, staying within that web to learn more and to get closer to whatever it is that you're looking for. What is that opportunity? Maybe it's a journalist who wants to write a story about you or wants to interview you. Maybe it's a future employee, a rock star who really wants to come to work for you, but they want to make sure that you really are who you say you are and you're doing good in this world. It's not always just a sale. It's not someone, let me buy your product. It could be a referral engine. It could be so much. And I think a lot of times we just think, oh, it's either a new job or it's an additional client. But the opportunities on LinkedIn are huge.
And you're saying a conversion is them taking an additional step, that they
Mhm.
don't go on the profile and then they just continue
Just
to.
yeah,
Yeah,
they go to my least favorite part of the profile, which is people like you, and they find someone else to click on and go down their rabbit hole. That's not the conversion that we want.
so would a rough formula be that I get notifications on LinkedIn that say this person and several others looked at your profile? Is a rough formula to look at how many people are looking versus taking the extra step versus reaching out to you? Or
Well, I think
how would someone measure like looks versus an action being
Mhm.
taken?
I think just having people visit the profile is a really good thing. So the more optimized your profile is, if a person is doing a search and they're saying, I want to see all business owners in the Iowa market in software as a service, or whatever it is. So the fact that a person has gone from the search results to your profile, that's a good sign. Just to have hits to your profile is great. To then say, what's that next step? It could be messages that a person messaged you. It could be that they then, again, that's the problem with LinkedIn, right? Because how can you measure where they're coming from? LinkedIn doesn't really give you that detail. So it is hard. It's hard to do. But ultimately, what are they doing? Are they messaging you? That's a really good sign. Maybe you have something like a form or a white paper or something that they could click on the featured section. That could also help show. But it could also be that the phone rings. And for me, that's often a really good sign. My phone number is all over the place. And oftentimes the phone rings, I'm on your profile.
So, how would a client of yours know that the work made a difference?
Ultimately, they know that I'm going to say this. There's two levels of differences, right? Having that moment where you look at the LinkedIn profile and you're looking at it and it's authentic, it's high level, it's telling your story. For a lot of my clients, this is the first time that they've done any type of personal branding. Most people really don't, at least not with a professional. And to have that message and to have that story, that's the first level of success. It's being able to say, oh my gosh, I didn't even realize that all of these dots were really connected and that I really do have a story. I have this message. So that's the first level. It's just them looking at it and feeling that sense of pride and suddenly feeling confident with who they are and what they bring to the table. That right there is huge. But then from there, it's, are they getting more calls? Are they getting more messages? Is it leading to whatever it is? Remember in the very beginning, let's really quantify, what are you looking for? Are you looking to are you looking for investors? Are you looking for board opportunities? Are you looking for opportunities in which there's stocks or equity? What is it? Are you looking for speaking engagements? Are you looking for that next position? All of these things, those things you'll start to see opportunities coming in. And that right there is within a year or so. And for a lot of our clients, it's far sooner, typically about 6 months. All of the things that they wanted, they got.
Tell me about your speaking engagements and your workshops. And when someone hires you for a speaking engagement, what are some of the common topics that they could hire you for? And then on
Mhm.
the workshop side, what do you find yourself doing most often that adds value for the attendees?
Mhm. When we do speaking engagements, for a long time, it was just let's do a presentation on how to optimize the profile. And that served us well for a very long time, but I'm finding more and more people are coming to me because they want a bigger picture of their career brand, and how can they make sure that it's not just the profile anymore, but it's the resume. It's how you're and it's not even just the profile. It's what are you saying on LinkedIn? How are you joining the conversation? What are you producing? What is that content? So it gets so much bigger than just LinkedIn. So that's what I'm finding with my speaking engagements. In terms of the workshops, we are still doing a lot of corporations are saying we want our people to look good on LinkedIn. We don't want them to look like they're jumping ship. And the problem is when a company says, hey, employees, we want you to look good on LinkedIn, what do? They copy and paste their resume. And once they copy and paste their resume, what are they doing? They're attracting recruiters to their profile,
Yeah.
which is not what we want. And what else do they look like? They look like they're looking. So this is like it's almost like this catch 22. And so what companies are doing is they'll have us come in and we can either do a workshop or we can work one-on-one with employees or their leadership team to make sure that we can optimize that profile in a manner that weaves in the company message, absolutely spotlights the employee, but doing so in a manner where they really look like that ambassador, that evangelist for the company, and not someone who wants to jump ship.
Yeah, that's very interesting. It's that double-edged sword, right? Do you want your people to have really good profiles to be attracted by recruiters? There's a lot of recruiters on LinkedIn, but
Yeah.
also if you think about it in
But
the
it's the
sales realm,
optimization piece, right? It's the
yeah,
optimization piece.
yeah, especially if you think about it from the sales realm, like you want your people to have the right words and music that go along with everything that they're promoting and saying and doing. And quite frankly, if you have the right brand internally to your business, people want to display the brand of their business and be proud of it and everything else. So I really love that. And Rich, I was thinking about your call to action question, which is if you just think about it from a marketing perspective, if you had a website and your company's website just talked about the things that you used to do and people came to your website, that would be a good thing. But if they didn't take any action, if they didn't fill out the contact form to get in touch with you, if they didn't download the assessment, which I want to talk about in a second, if they didn't call you on your phone or fill out a form, then was that really success? Maybe a little bit. You at least got somebody there. But what's the call to action? And as I think about that, and I'd encourage the listeners to think about this question, do you have calls to action on your website beyond the traditional button that says, here's my website? And when you look at Donna's LinkedIn profile, literally, I found myself on her personal branding makeover assessment. And I don't even know, Donna, if this is something that you do a lot of or not, but I'd love to talk about it because I'm looking at this, and for $0, you can actually get a Rise personal branding assessment of where you currently stand. Is that something that you're still doing, Donna?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I've been I have done so much work on that assessment because once you fill it out, there is a report at the end.
Mm.
And going through the assessment, have you gone through the assessment? Because the assessment is really designed to really center you and evoke a lot of feelings and a lot of thoughts of the future and what are you doing right and what you're doing wrong. Even if you don't get a report, the assessment in itself, just the questions that we ask
Yeah.
and the way you're asked to rank yourself, I think is really it opens your mind to possibilities that I know that when I was starting in my career, and even years into my career, no one ever teaches you to think about your career and the goal strategically.
Yeah. And I guess my point round circle all the way back to that is in going through your profile, I'm like, okay, here's what oh, this is interesting. And I clicked on it. I turned up on that website. You probably have Google Analytics on that site going, somebody from LinkedIn came here from there. And now I'm
Mhm.
going to go fill it out and fill out my information. And that's all trackable. That call to action is something that I'm taking away from this. And I'd encourage others to think about, do you have your services? Do you have your call to action? Do you have your phone number? To your point, it's on your website, it's on your LinkedIn profile. It's easy to get, you're open and available for contact. So all those CTAs are something that we need to work on. I encourage people to go to your LinkedIn profile, go find it, Donna Serdula, and go look at all the calls to action that are there. It's amazing. Donna, how else can our listeners get more information from you, or what other tips or tricks or tools do you have beyond that assessment maybe people should look into?
So if you visit linkedin-makeover.com and you click on free resources, I've got some really great ones. So that Rise Up personal branding assessment is one of them. I also have a LinkedIn headline generator. So if you're thinking, oh, I want to at least start optimizing my profile and I don't know where to start, we give you a free headline. That's a good starting point. I also have in there is a text formatter. And so if you've ever thought to yourself, I really wish I could have a bold header in my LinkedIn profile, or as I'm posting on LinkedIn, I want to call something out, you can't format text on LinkedIn, but you can with my faux text generator. So that's, I think, thousands and thousands of people just to that alone. So check it out.
Those are great tools. I know I'm going to be jumping in. It sounds like Rich, you're going to be doing the same to learn some of the ways we can optimize our brands online. Donna, thanks for joining us today.
Well, thank you for having me.
Thanks, Donna.
Stay tuned as John and Rich unpack today's conversation.
John, I would not say my LinkedIn profile has who am I, what I stand for, why you should trust me, why you should like me, why you should believe in me. I don't have any of that. I have a pretty decent resume on LinkedIn guy. Where do you stand on that?
Yeah, I'd say I'm probably around the same spot. I think one of my takeaways here is, do I use rich text? No. Do I have enough calls to action? Do I provide enough value? Do I sell the futuristic view of what's available versus just my resume of the past and here's what I've done? No and no. And I need to go do this assessment. I got to go figure out what I need to improve, because it is front facing. I do it all the time, Rich. If I want to look up Rich Hoffman, whether I do a search in Google or whether I go straight to LinkedIn and research you, LinkedIn is probably where I'm going to end up ultimately, to look up who is Rich Hoffman and what value do I have in connecting with Rich Hoffman. Now, I do think, unfortunately, LinkedIn is also a ground zero for recruiters. It's ground zero for anybody that wants to sell you anything. I get tons of messages every single day of somebody trying to sell me something. I barely even read the messages anymore. It's gotten really bad. But that doesn't change the fact that if I want to look up you because I read your book, or I want to look you up because I heard about you, if your LinkedIn profile isn't marketing you, just like your web page would, you're not doing it right. That's my takeaway from today.
I'm literally looking at my LinkedIn messages as we're talking here, and you were saying you've got a bunch of marketers. Looking back here in the last 10, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 out of the last 10 are marketers.
Yeah.
I don't think that is the conversion that Donna was talking about. Somebody's on there and they want to market you to buy something or interact with them or basically get something from you. And I would agree with what you said. I don't have enough things on there for conversion to something, to anything, whether it be the website, whether it be value, whether it be anything, like to provide any value. You've got to think, with you and I both coaching entrepreneurs, they'd be an entrepreneur would be more likely to reach out to us if they actually got value off of looking at the LinkedIn profile and they didn't have to pay for it. And they'd say, wow, I want more of that. Mm-hmm. And I have to think about how to go about that. I'd love to have that conversation with you, probably offline, because it'll be creative. But there's something to that we're not tapping into.
Yeah, but let's bring it to the entrepreneur and leader listening that may not have a coaching business. Think about somebody coming to interview for your company. There's no doubt whatsoever that somebody coming to interview to work for you is going to look you up. they're not just going to go to the company website. They're going to go to your LinkedIn profile, and they want to see that they can trust you. They want to see where have you come from? How long have you been at this business? What are some of the messages that you have? Are you working on your brand there? So there's a lot of different areas you need to be thinking about. It's not just, are you selling something to somebody and therefore build trust and authenticity and give calls to action? It's also, does your profile really display authentically who you are for people that want to join your business? Your customers that may want to do business with your company may look up people in the company in their profiles. So there's a lot of extensions to this brand piece that I really don't think we think enough about. We just have this LinkedIn profile with our resume. And if we augment it, what it could really mean from recruiting, from doing business with other customers, there's so many different angles to it.
Who's your favorite sports team in any sport?
Montreal
Just
Canadiens.
Absolute favorite.
Montreal Canadiens.
Montreal Canadiens.
Yep.
Okay. That's an interesting one, because I know I've looked at LinkedIn profiles sometimes to see what do I have in common or what can I create rapport with someone on. Would you consider putting Montreal Canadiens super fan or something like that on there so that somebody who is a hockey fan could say, oh, the Montreal Canadiens, we kicked their tail? And is that the type of place where you'd be willing to go? Is stuff that is a little bit personal to you that gives somebody threads to be able to feel like they could build rapport with you?
No, not necessarily. If I was engaged in a Montreal Canadiens group in LinkedIn, I wouldn't be afraid to have that link to my profile and says that I'm part of that group. I think a lot of business professionals are looking for LinkedIn to be a professional environment. Oh, you worked here? I know some people that work there, connection type of thing. I think the social media of Instagram and TikTok or Twitter or all those guys are more for those types of communities or raving fans of certain things that connect there from more an entertainment perspective. So no, I'd keep it more professional personally. But how many times do we start off a LinkedIn conversation with going, oh, you live in Montreal? Or, oh, you live in Iowa? I'm down the street. There are connection points that exist there that you should find. And I'll tell you what, the other thing too, Rich, with LinkedIn, think about This is the one area that I've talked to many people about recently. People don't use LinkedIn the way it was originally intended to work, which is basically not who are you connected to, but who are you connected to that's connected to others that can provide some value or you can provide value to. And it's because that you look to seek to provide value, you can get paid back in spades, right, by providing value to begin with. But how many times have you used LinkedIn the last couple of years where you're trying to connect to somebody I know because there's some connection point there? To me, that's really the original intent of LinkedIn, is linking people together. And when you use it in that way, it's really powerful. If I asked you to connect me with one person you're really close to, that would really work. I think LinkedIn got far away from that because now we're connected to a whole bunch of people we don't even know. We just accept all the LinkedIn connections that come in. So we don't even know people that we're connected to. How many times have we gotten on with somebody going, oh, Jeff Levitan? Like, oh no, I don't really know who that is. I just connected with him at some point. So it's lost a little bit that secret sauce it used to have.